I want to give a special thank you for all those that are here listening to this conversation we're about to have. We've been inside of a conversation about the four principles, and we talked a little bit about enzymes, excuse me, but I want to go a little further and talk a little deeper about them. I think it's one of those concepts that very few people have ever really heard about, and after I share what I do, maybe you'll make enough sense out of it all and begin to incorporate the power of enzymes into your life. You know, it's been said that if we as people will just relax and surrender to that who made us and be thankful for every moment that we live in, and be a loving, caring, compassionate, understanding, patient, kind person, creating win-win scenarios with everyone, that it's a good idea, that it could actually transform the entire planet. But I say this to you: if you incorporate the other principles of life and stimulate your lymphatic system, oscillate every cell in your body, take the time to embrace the sun and breathe slow and deep and be present to your breath, feel your heart pumping, be thankful for every function of your entire body, and know that your body is like a vehicle, that we live through it, we express through it, and so on. But it's still a very precious part of our lives that we need to take care of. And this is why I want to mention a little bit about the efficacy and the power of enzymes. I find that when we eat just fresh fruits and vegetables and seeds that are soaked and germinated, enzyme activated, and or cultured, it puts a lot of wonderful enzymes into our bodies. Remember, we talk about enzymes, the life force, the spark of life. Well, we're so busy destroying them in our food through the cooking process, whether we're microwaving, steaming, frying, baking, cooking, whatever we do. But we heat it, we highly heat it, and it destroys the life force within our food. And then we try to eat this food thinking it's going to give us all the life force, the life energy, the power to live this life. And it doesn't work, not long term anyway. So anyhow, what I find is that in just research and experience and going through it myself and working with many people, I just notice that every time we incorporate enzymes and take care of the deficiencies that they have, they all seem to recover or get better and have a great success in their lives, as I have for myself. So anyway, I just like to go on to finish saying that every time you cook food, remember that your body ends up using more of your own enzymes to digest that food more than you remanufacture, which causes an enzyme depletion, right? And this depletion that takes place, we develop what they call partial digestion. That means some of your proteins, carbs, and fats get digested and processed like they're supposed to. Like when you digest proteins into amino acids, that's what builds muscle, that's what builds hair, skin, bones, that's what makes more enzymes and hormones in your body to keep your integrity, your cellular integrity. You break down the fats into fatty acids so you can have healthy hair, healthy skin, healthy brain function, healthy myelin sheath around your nerves. The fatty acids are very important to you, but you must break it down into fatty acids first before you can use them. It's the same thing with carbohydrates. We need to break down carbohydrates into glucose, simple sugars, so your body can convert it into energy, utilize it for energy, and give you tons of energy. And remember, to have good, healthy brain function, so you can remember, so you can function and reason and dream and all these wonderful things we like to do with our brains, you need to have protein, amino acids. You need to have glucose, and you need to have fatty acids for a good, healthy brain function. So those neurotransmitters in your brain will work and work simultaneously in your favor. Anyhow, when you become so enzyme deficient to the point where you're only digesting half what you're eating and the other half doesn't get digested, then you end up with this accumulation of undigested proteins, carbs, and fats, which putrefy, ferment, and acidify within the body. When this happens, it builds up toxic waste. And then from there, it begins to attract parasites, viruses, bacteria, and yeast of all kinds. These little critters live on this waste, and when they eat on this waste, this host, this environment that I'm talking about, basically what happens is they proliferate, they multiply. At the same time, when they're multiplying, they're also, as they're eating this waste, they're also excreting waste out of their little bodies. And their waste byproducts that come out of their little bodies are very acidic, very poisonous, very smelly, and deadly. And it leads to all the infections and diseases of all kinds. That's why toxemia is the one word that covers all diseases. This is one of the reasons why we want to advocate and encourage and do everything we can to inspire you to understand this concept. Because if you understand it, in the future, no longer will you be eating cooked processed foods. You'll eat fruits and vegetables and herbs in the natural state. You'll take the seeds and nuts and you'll soak them, you'll germinate them. You'll go organic. You'll get away from GMO food, genetically modified food, chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, and all that. You'll go into organic, fresh, raw living, enzyme-rich foods, as I've done over the years. There's not an accident that, you know how they say everything happens for a reason? Well, now I look back and I'm so thankful that I lived in a very conventional lifestyle the first 21 years of my life. And I'm glad now, when I look back, I'm glad I went through that big tumor behind my head. And I'm glad I had all the severe acne on my face. I'm glad I had the rash in my body. I'm glad I had that chronic asthma. I'm glad I had chronic constipation and having all that pain and all that agony and hoping and praying I could go to the bathroom when I needed to and couldn't. I mean, I'm glad I suffered so much. I'm glad I went through the fear of dying and all that, because it did one thing. It got me to a point where I went deep inside and I completely found myself surrendering to the Most High, being humbled by this whole experience. And I found and discovered and was, you might say, embraced by this bright light. And I saw a presence by me, and I was given some teachings and shown these teachings, these principles of life that I learned. But isn't it interesting? I learned them, I did them, and then 6 months later everything goes away, never comes back in 41 years. That's powerful. Since 1973 I've been doing well. And I can only say, just do your best to understand what I'm saying, and maybe, hopefully you'll have the heart to feel what I'm about to say. But remember this, from a physical plane, we must, all of us, need to be able to digest everything we eat so we can break it down into micronutrients and absorb them into the body and metabolize them and actually convert them into energy and convert them into muscle, hair, skin, bones, make more enzymes and hormones and all that, and maintain what they call cellular integrity and eliminate the waste and run clean and efficient. These are important things we need to accomplish on a daily basis. So where enzymes come in, it helps us to digest. It helps us to break down these foods into micronutrients so they can be delivered, assimilated, absorbed into the system, and then feed your cells. So then from there you can metabolize it into energy and everything else and eliminate and run clean and efficient. I remember back in the day when John Wayne, people like Elvis Presley, you know, they're eating just conventional foods and what have you. Before they passed on, they had over 15, 30 pounds of excess fecal matter in their intestinal tract. They were very toxic and they suffered a great deal from cancer and different things. They suffered a lot. Well, guess what? It's happening to millions of people. We want to like omit that and get rid of that. And the solution is to be able to learn about the power of enzymes. And remember, we do have 3 classes of enzymes. You have food enzymes in your food. That's why it's important to eat natural, enzyme-rich food, organic. So when you chew it really well, it can digest. It can partially begin to start pre-digesting itself. Just like a banana sits on the counter and it ripens by itself, those are enzyme activities going on inside that banana. Just like an avocado sits on the counter and it ripens up, it's enzyme activity going on. That's what makes it ripen. But I'm just saying that when you eat food that has enzyme activity in it, it helps you to pre-digest your food. See, without enzymes, that doesn't happen. So if you eat food that doesn't have enzyme activity in it, then the pancreas has to overwork to help make up the difference, to help you pre-digest that food at its best. But you end up overworking the pancreas. That's why we have 30 million diabetics in our country diagnosed and growing rapidly. But all that can be omitted and actually reversed, in my opinion, if we just start catching on to this concept and wake up to the truth. So The ideal situation is that when you have enzymes in your food and you don't overwork the pancreas anymore, but let the pancreas do its job and just help aid in the digestion of your food, now that makes a big difference, you see. So the pancreas is another class of enzymes. They're called pancreatic digestive enzymes, and they're very important to us, and they help us. So that way from there it can continue breaking down the foods into micro nanonutrients, you might say. So then we can actually manufacture metabolic enzymes. Metabolic enzymes is another class of enzymes. But these thousands of these various enzymes is what runs our body. That's what allows us to blink. That's what allows us to think and remember and reason. This is to even have happy feelings and all kinds of wonderful experiences within ourselves. It takes care of the wear and tear of your cells. It allows you to have muscle contraction, flexibility. You see, but what happens is that when you cook food and you're eating enzyme deficient food from deficient soil, or maybe because it's been cooked, then when it goes into your body, your pancreas overworks, and then you end up using more than you make, and then you become deficient. And guess what? Then you become metabolic enzyme deficient. Your enzyme potential drops dramatically through time, and it speeds it all up. So if you want to have premature aging and set yourself up for illnesses and what have you, then as you lower your enzyme potential, you become susceptible to premature aging, illnesses and what have you, and degenerative diseases as well. Because every person who all has any sickness or disease or any suffering going on, they all have an enzyme deficiency. And they all have poor digestion, poor assimilation, poor metabolism, and poor elimination. So to master the art of digestion, we need to be keen and aware of this enzyme concept. Now, once your body, just to break down a little further, once your body becomes protease enzyme deficient, then what happens is, as you're eating protein foods, whether you're vegetarian or non-vegetarian, but if you're eating protein foods and your body is using up an enzyme called protease more than you're making, then you become deficient in it. And once you do become deficient in it, you see, back in the day, the Dr. Edward Howell, medical doctor scientist, he did thousands and thousands of urine analysis on people. And he actually learned, figured out, and broke it down and found out that when a person is protease enzyme deficient, they had various conditions in their body, from acne to all forms of infections, cancer, tumors, fibromyalgia, endometriosis, irritable bowel syndromes, bowel movement syndromes, Crohn's disease, endometriosis, Alzheimer's, and what have you, and mental disorders, depression, anxiety attacks, loss of muscle tone. These are the things that showed up when they had these issues showing up. And so when they had, when people had like amylase enzyme deficiencies, because they were eating all these carbohydrate foods that are in the cooked form, whether it's cooked grains of any kind, pastas, breads, cereals, bagels, crackers, cookies, pastries, all these cooked carbohydrates, when they go in your body will use up an enzyme called amylase, more than you make, and you become deficient in it. And once you do become deficient in it to a point, then you end up with, like with allergies, you end up with joint issues, like joint pain, inflammation of the joints, like allergies, respiratory disorders, and you swell up if you have a little bite by a bug. You'll swell up. This is an amylase enzyme deficiency. And then the other enzyme that I think is important for you to know is an enzyme called lipase. It's the enzyme that breaks down fats into fatty acids. And when you're eating cooked oils or fried foods of any kind, vegetarian or non-vegetarian, point being is if it's heated and it goes into your system, your body will have to use up an enzyme called lipase more than you make, and then you become deficient in it. And then you cannot no longer break down fats into fatty acids. Therefore, it ferments. Forgive me, it doesn't ferment, it turns rancid. It turns rancid in your system. It's just like the carbohydrates, they ferment in the body when they go undigested, which leads to those conditions I shared with you. But lipase, when it turns rancid in your body, then you end up with like cholesterol issues, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, fatty tumors, cellulite, psoriasis, plaquing on the arteries. These are the things that show up. High blood pressure, and so what we want to do is help people understand that when they have these issues going on, to incorporate enzymes into their meals when they eat, and also to help them maximize digestion, to compensate for the enzyme deficiency in the food, and also have them use some powerful enzymes between the meals on an empty stomach so they work systemically within the body.